Alrighty, I'm going to be going into another discussion in which we're going to be talking about entities and how they operate, in which I'm going to be trying to speak about in a rational sense. So basically, whenever it comes to the subjective, the unconscious, I like to see them as independent energies within themselves. Now, whenever I'm talking about energies, I'm talking about what's felt. Spirits influence the realm of what's felt, in which people like to think that spiritual realm and physical realm are separate. No, they're always coinciding with one another, folks. Okay? And whenever it comes to the unconscious, what's funny is that that's a part in which breaks apart the barriers of what we think we're separate from, especially from others we talk to. It's like those are it focuses on the limitless exchanges between and what you don't know is affecting you and that's affecting the person you're talking with. And I like to see that as its own field of expertise, in which it allows you to understand that we're doing much more than simply speaking to one another. We're doing much more than simply helping one another. It's like we're so focused on the simplicity of what's done that we don't dig underneath as to what it's really doing. So, whenever it comes to that, like the exchange of spirits, like the old saying goes, "Are you in good spirits today?" Like that's the whole point is that it's already described in terms of feeling. Feeling is of spirit and spirit is of feeling. Now, granted, that's depending on what spirits you're heeding. Like, for instance, whenever there's a thought that pops in your head and you're entertaining it, already that's inviting the spirit of that thought, in which we're not of our thoughts per se. If we were, then we would actually be rather simple creatures. Really, we would be very simple to see and understand each other. But we're not simple at all. In fact, there's many fucking different people with many different modes of thinking and many different modes of what's really built beneath as to how they're thinking in that first place. So it starts with that. What other modes can I describe? So whenever it comes to bringing in entities, I like to say, is that the one thing that you will encounter is that you're going to encounter a feeling. See, people don't like to hear that word feeling because they think it's horseshit. It's like, well, what do you think is derived in every fucking interaction in which you commit? It's everything's derived from feeling, especially whenever it comes to conversing with another. If you're having a shitty day, you're having a shitty feeling, you're going to be, tossing that shit over to another, aren't you? Or you're just going to be keeping silent and building up these turmoils within, keep on feeding that fiasco in which it just builds until it fucking crushes you. It's like that's definitely something which people have not recognized yet, but they will. Uh, but whenever it comes to entities, I do not suggest ever working with them until you have your internal state cleared out and still. Because whenever, now granted, if you want to make fucking deals with them, then by all means, fucking go on ahead. But it's like, whenever it comes down to it, just there's one wise quote in which I like from another person that says, "Don't give your soul to an entity." It's like you got to admit that's too high of a bargaining price. But whenever it comes to that, whatever you're doing, just okay. But just know, if you don't have the internal frameworkings, then trust me, any entities that you're not sure of will either fuck with you or not. Reason why is because there's trickster types and which will try to cause you to lose your balance. And they'll do it through what's felt. And if they could get you to fall into what's felt, then they got you. Then suddenly they have permission to do whatever they fucking want with you. So that's why I don't suggest it at first. That's why I don't suggest communicating with entities at first. Not unless if you're one of those imaginative motherfuckers that's capable of exercising such an imagination beyond knowledge. And I would say that you've already encountered those sorts of entities before. So, what other things can I describe? I'm going to go ahead and pause. That way I can focus and ponder. I guess I'm going to get into a different tangent about entity communication and how it actually works. And whenever it comes to internal frameworking and all that, once everything's cleared out from you, that's not of you, and you can really choose from those O names as to what you're willing to be, then whenever you have a clear slate, then that's whenever psychic sensing starts to take hold. The ability to hear spirits, see spirits, feel spirits. That's whenever you start to see that. Now, granted, people don't pay attention to by separating these two measures of internal, external. They just fucking mix the shit together. And that's not how it works. You separate them both. You make sure they're separate. That way you can see what the fuck's going on this side, see what the fuck's going on that side. Uh, but whenever, after this Phoenix effect from my last video of finally clearing out everything, all of your problems, then you're going to start gaining abilities which will make you think you're crazy, and which it will. Fucking psychiatrists will literally label me schizo, ADHD, fucking everything. They would. And they would be wondering as to how the fuck I'm operating better than 80% of the people in public. It's like, they're going to be confused by that notion. That's why whenever it comes to the rationality I entertain nowadays, it's like, people need to understand there's an irrational element to us. Without that irrationality, we're not going to be fulfilled. But I'm not describing this as irrational. I'm actually trying to describe it in such a way that it makes sense to you. But whenever it comes to psychic sensing, the first signs of which you will face is ringing in the ears, and it's not tinnitus. Reason why is because tinnitus will have pains that come along with it. But you'll either hear a loud ass hum in your ear or a very low hum. High pitched to low pitched. Those are different messages depending on which ear it's coming out from. That really is the case. Now, a lot of these topics of which I'm bringing up, it's going to include more research from y'all's end, because if I was to describe it in such intimate detail, I would never be fucking done with this video. It would be fucking forever. But the one thing that I could describe about clairvoyance is it's a receptive ability, in which you can only do that whenever your mind's clear, whenever you're not fucking bouncing around in there and you're in the moment. That way, whenever you're observing your environment, you're allowing those images to come without actually imposing anything upon it. So that way it's not fucked over by your mind. That saying that whatever comes to you at first is pure, but whenever you start thinking about it, it starts to get all fucking hazy and all fucked up type shit. Well, that's pretty much the way, like overthinking. Trust me, whenever it comes to this field, overthinking, it pretty much focuses on getting rid of that, because it won't really operate to its full capacity if you're overthinking a lot. What other things can I describe? Clairsensing, I'd say, is the most prominent ability, which I do see with people, and which a lot of people exercise it without knowing, especially whenever it comes to like arguments, and then they all feel all charged up after they're done with their arguments. And that's pretty much the sensing and the spirit, which was invoked by two parties, in which fucking clashed and therefore charged up the fucking room in which they were in which they think they're the only ones feeling that. No, trust me, anybody else that's in that room is going to feel it too. It's like they're going to feel their heart pumping, shit like that. Simple things. Psychological triggers, I like to say. And what other? Man, my goodness fucking gracious. There's a lot of good shit I want to talk about. I'll pause real quick. I'm actually going to go ahead and switch topic again. I know I fucking already switched it 3 times, but there's a lot of good ideas, which, well, I like to convey it in the most proper form I could. So I'm going to get into it. Whenever it comes to the nature of spirit, what I like to say is that nature of spirit is a nature of expression, and which is either caused within and creates imprints within, or is expressed external and caused imprints on literally either the place, people, or anything else within your environment. That's why whenever it comes to mediums per se, whenever they walk into places, they can sense spirits, is because they are feeling the impressions of which has been impressed upon it, and it's a subtle line. It's really based on subtleties, in which people don't detect it on an everyday basis because they're not focused on it. They don't think about it. They don't even ponder on it. They just say, "Oh, it is as it is," shit. It's like we like to think that we're as separate as we are. We're not. We're not separate from what is. We're actually not quite so different from one another if we were to get back into this field. But spirit is basically that which is entertained and therefore expressed. Now, granted, if you're an internal motherfucker, an introvert, and there's a lot of turmoil within you, it's because you're entertaining spirits per se, of what you're thinking about and entertaining per se, like you're bad, you're not gonna make it type shit. Those are spirits, okay? And those aren't the spirits in which you should be entertaining. So the whole point is to not combat it. People like to combat what they're thinking with thoughts. It's like you don't combat it with thinking with thinking. It's like trying to fight a forest fire with fucking gasoline. It's like that's not gonna work. So the whole point is to calm those waters and then let those spirits drift away from you and really sit in here right now and literally pay attention to what you're smelling, what you're tasting, what you're hearing, what you're seeing. It's like it doesn't matter what the fuck you're present for and seeing. It's like that's the whole point is that you're supposed to be here. That way you're not overwhelmed. And that way it can pass away from you. That way you can entertain your own spirits. And which, like you're gonna make it, and like that, like you're gonna be able to do this, do that, do this. And which people get all this mixed up with the information which is being brought out nowadays and how easy information is to be accessed. And what people don't know is that information accesses them. See, people don't know that there's an interaction to give and take. Whenever you're getting information, you're not just simply getting information, the information is literally being entertained within you. Whenever you make that exchange, trust me, it's going to be brought within you. So that's why I stay away from fucking news and all that and everything else because whenever you invite those sorts of spirits in and then just entertain it on a daily basis, this side's right, this side's wrong, it starts to really get a hold of you. It does. And that's why I stay away from that. But spirits I like to call the now, granted, this could be microcosmic or macrocosmic. Microcosmic is within, while macrocosmic is external, in which, the major arcana, lesser arcana, the way it's described. Now, that was from a fucking video which I watch, in which I like watching educational shit. Just as long as you entertain, that you understand that you're entertaining information and information is actually being entertained within you and you choose how it really dictates where you're going, then I'd say you wouldn't have as much problems. Uh, the one thing, other two, fuck, I'm just going to go ahead and post this up. This is pretty damn good for, I'd say, for putting things into perspective.